I have a confession to make. I am a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings movies. So when I arrived in this majestic place where they were filmed, this is the music that was playing in my head. Go ahead and make fun of me. I'm just being honest. This is one of those places on our planet that truly inspires wonder and awe when you see it. With that said, I didn't come to New Zealand on some sort of fact-finding mission about wizards and golems and dragons and little people all on a mission to chase after a ring. So why am I in New Zealand, you ask? I'm on a mission, all right. A mission to chase after this.
No matter who you are,
this is my happy place.
no matter what you want, you like.
God bless Africa.
You're gonna be a star.
Rooster! Hell yeah.
Rolling like a VIP.
Do I dare eat the meat pie?
Living like a rock star, baby.
That guy has a lot of balls, a lot more balls than I do.
Living like a rock star, baby. You're living like a rock star, baby.
Adventure begins here. Where will your Kimber take you? It was 1642, and the Dutch named this place Stadland. 3 years later, they changed the name to Nova Zeelandia after the Dutch province of Zeeland. And it stayed that way for 124 years, until British explorer James Cook came along and named it New Zealand. By just about anyone's standards, New Zealand is the adventure capital of the world. Hiking, skydiving, caving, bungee jumping, skiing, fishing, and hunting. Everything here is geared towards getting you outside and doing something incredible. And being the adventurous guy that I am, all of that sounds awesome, but I'm focused on the fur and the fins. Huge red stag, chamois, backcountry tar, and some of the best trout fishing in the world. That's what brings me to New Zealand. I've come here to hunt with Richard and Sarah Burden. The Burdens are ranchers, sheep ranchers to be exact, and they have a lot of sheep. Richard and Sarah's ranch has 3,000 head of sheep and 600 head of cattle, and it spans over 15,000 acres. When you have that kind of land, you're bound to have some wildlife. Richard's family began managing red deer here over 50 years ago, and Richard and Sarah are carrying on that tradition. Today, the Burdens operate Glen Dene hunting and fishing, and it's one of the top places to hunt red stag in the whole world. And if that's not enough, they offer the rare opportunity to hunt them fair chase and free range. Now, hunting big game, that's a topic I know quite a bit about. But sheep, that's a completely different story.
Your family's been raising sheep here for how many generations?
My great-grandfather came out here in 1900 and bought a farm, so I'm the fourth generation.
On this farm?
Not on this farm. My grandfather bought this farm in 1928.
Wow.
And we've been sheep farmers and outdoorsmen, hunters and fishermen for all our lives. And today, running this property, even though we run a hunting operation, we still, sheep are still a big part of it.
You might not think it, but New Zealand is the perfect place to raise sheep. The main reason is that it's an island with almost no natural mammals, so there's no predators. With New Zealand sheep numbers reaching over 40 million, that outnumbers the people here 10 to 1, and there's a good reason for that. New Zealand is heavily dependent on international trade, particularly with agricultural products, which make up 24% of its exports. Sheep's wool make up 7%, and they're most famous for New Zealand merino wool. But before you can sell the wool, you first need to harvest it. And as I'm about to learn, shearing a sheep is all about how you dance.
There's a thing called the shearing song.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to teach you how. The 56 blows is like 1, 2, 3 on the belly, and then you pick the belly up and that goes in that pocket. On the back leg.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're moving all the time, and you're coming up the neck, around the side of the neck, and then moving the sheep down, and then you're on the long blows.
Apparently it's all in the hips here.
Yeah, all on the hips.
I bet the ladies love you, don't they?
Oh, you're really doing, but
It's all in the
it's
hips.
groovy movement.
Even just getting a hold of one of these guys, there's got to be an art to that, right?
Yep. Get your knees right in, your hand under, and grab the back leg. And to reduce the amount of kicking, it's all on how you hold the animal. So,
And they just let you do it.
yep.
That's the damnedest thing I've ever seen.
Typically, an adult sheep is shorn once each year, and the shearer begins by removing the belly wool, and he separates it from the main fleece. Then, he moves to the rest of the body, making good, clean cuts, trying to yield the most wool without significantly marking or cutting the sheep.
I'm totally enamored by how well this sheep is handling this.
Depending on the size and condition of the sheep, it takes an experienced shearer about 2 or 3 minutes to finish. Somehow, I have a funny feeling that I won't come anywhere close to that number.
Look at that.
It's processed.
Picture livestock being, these kind of dirty, animals. This is like pure, soft, clean wool.
Yeah. Natural product.
Natural. All right, now it's my turn.
Okay.
Maybe, someday, I'll learn to be careful what I wish for.
Look out, buddy.
The first rule of sheep shearing is to not cut the sheep. What's the first thing I do? Break rule number 1. I already felt bad for this poor guy, and now I really feel bad. But after a while, I started to get the hang of it. Well, kind of anyway.
This is me. This is Richard.
There's only 2 weeks between a good and a bad haircut.
That poor sheep. He looks like my sister did when I was 5 years old and tried to cut her hair.
And throw him down the hole,
Down the hole.
and just like that.
We decided to use what little time we had left in the day to make sure my Kimber was still zeroed after the long trip. But if I'd known what was going to happen, I might have reconsidered.
I just got scoped really good.
He's bleeding.
Which hasn't happened to me in years. All the I've shot over the years, and I just got scoped at the range in New Zealand. Are you kidding me?
If you're not following me online, you're making a mistake. I'm at Nick's Wild Ride on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And once you're done with that, you can check me out at nickswildride.net. Big bad trucks for big bad boys and girls. Kelderman Trucks. Bigger, bolder, better. Glen Dene is located just a little ways outside of the small lake town of Wanaka. It's on the southeast side of what they call Roy's Bay, and it's here that I meet up with my guide for the next week, Dan Rossiter. He's a local, and I'm getting a first-hand look at small-town life in New Zealand over a staple food in these parts, a venison meat pie.
This lake and these mountains and this kind of ski town, this isn't what I had pictured at all.
Right.
I don't know why I had something different pictured in my head. You get people come here and they're surprised by the beauty of this place.
I'm surprised by the mountains, vertical our mountains are. Like in altitude, they might not be that high compared to what you have at home, but they're pretty rough, some of our mountains.
Right. One thing I didn't realize is you can hunt year-round here.
All year round, yep.
Because there's no seasons.
No seasons, no tags. The animals are not native to the country, so they're not valued like you value your animals.
Even though they're managed heavily,
Yep,
they're considered by the government to be a pest.
yep.
In the 1920s, deer stalking became a popular sport and a tourist attraction, and some huge red deer trophies were taken. Until 1923, deer were protected by law, and by 1932, game seasons, bag limits, and most other restrictions were dropped, as the deer population had grown to such an extent that the government now had classified these deer as, quote, noxious animals. But that wasn't the end of the red deer story.
There's just no rules.
You guys, as hunters, you self-regulate. Obviously, you don't just shoot something and let it
No.
lay. It's discouraged amongst the hunting
That's
community,
right.
right? You try and let young animals walk, and you try and trophy hunt the best you can.
Yep.
I just got this meat pie that's venison. I mean, red stag and venison are on the menus everywhere. It's not only unregulated, it's self-regulated. And that's pretty interesting.
And it's reasonably accepted. I mean, you don't have the anti-hunters here in New Zealand that you probably do in the States. Maybe in our bigger city like Auckland you will. Small town New Zealand like this, if I drove through here with a a stag on the back of my ATV, on the back of my truck, nobody would be worried about it at all.
In fact, they'd probably slap you on the back and say, good job.
Nice stag, we'll
Yeah,
take a
right?
photo of it.
That sounds like heaven.
That's good.
As Dan and I set out on our first day of hunting, I realized quickly that this place really does look just like Lord of the Rings. It's a rough and unforgiving landscape that'll kick the butt of even the most seasoned of hikers. But I'm excited, and I'm always up for a challenge. And after a good solid hike into the countryside, we set up and start glassing for red stag. The red deer is not native to New Zealand. It was introduced here. In fact, there are no native land mammals to these islands at all, except for 2 species of little tiny bats. The first red stag to reach New Zealand were a pair sent here by Englishman Lord Petrie in 1851 from his private herd in Thorndon Park. But they were shot before they had a chance to breed. So Lord Petrie sent more stags in 1861, and those red deer thrived, and they quickly spread.
There's a big, big, big stag up there. Only problem is he's in the middle of a draw on the other side of a creek, a mile away, and it's our first 2 hours of hunting. The question is, do we spend the rest of our evening going way over there, or do we keep going over here where we know there's probably more?
It's no secret that New Zealand has plenty of high fence places where you can go and shoot monster red deer. And to that, I say to each their own. But we're hunting fair chase stag in open country. So just like any mountain hunt back home, when you spot an animal that's miles away, it can take all day to make a move on it. So picking what animal to go after and when to make a move can sometimes be a throw of the dice. But we did find an opportunity, and we took it.
Talk about heartbreak. We saw this stag like a mile away. We hiked our butts off to get over that mountain and over here. And the only shot I have is a skyline shot, which means that I don't know where my bullet's gonna go once it gets past or through, or heck, if I missed or whatever. I don't know what's over the hill there. The truth is, I do know what's over the hill, nothing. But it's a very unethical shot to do that, so here I sit.
When things come, when things go, I don't mind.
Don't just tell stories to your friends, prove them. Tacticam, share your hunt. Check out our sponsors. Kimber, what all guns should be. Franke, feels right. Nikon, trust, earn. Nikon. Federal Premium Ammunition, every shot counts. And John Burrell's High Adventure Company, sporting experiences of a lifetime. It's my first morning in New Zealand, and I have been impatiently waiting for the sun to rise. Yesterday, we spotted a nice bull skylined on a hillside, and I wasn't able to make an ethical shot. But as luck would have it, with a little bit of searching, we were able to find him again this morning. We were able to slowly crawl up just over the crest of a hill a little over 100 yards away from this stag. And that's a shot I'm comfortable with any day. But I didn't expect the pressure I felt. I flew all the way around the world for this moment. And I'll be honest, when that stag turned and looked straight at me, my heart pounded like I'd never hunted before.
Good hit.
Unbelievable. As I sit down next to this beautiful animal, it's strange to think that in this part of the world, red stag are classified as a pest, like wild hogs are back home. This big stag is anything but that to me, and the hunters in New Zealand feel the same way. This guy is proof positive that sound game and habitat management practices really do work, and Glen Dene has done just that. Now the hard work begins, and as we pack this big guy out, I'm able to mentally check New Zealand red stag off my bucket list. In celebration of a successful afternoon, Richard and Sarah host a little shindig and barbecue on the shores of Lake Wanaka, and here I get the chance to meet their 2 children, Georgie and Charlie. Now this scenario is a regular family affair for the Burdens, and it's complete with a strange New Zealand delicacy that is unlike anything I've ever seen, let alone eaten.
This is New Zealand whitebait. Whitebait's a bit of a delicacy and it's caught on rivers in September through to November. That's the season. And
It's literally a tiny little eel. You can see its eyes and everything. How do you eat it? Do you eat it raw or do you cook it?
Sarah's mixed this with a bit of egg and bacon rind. You cook it straight on the barbie and it's just beautiful.
And this is what this is over here. Can I try it?
Yeah.
I would have never expected little tiny eelfish or whatever they are to taste so good. And while fresh New Zealand whitebait might be something that you can only get here, it might not be for everyone. But I do know this. One thing you can call a safe bet no matter where you go in the world is pizza.
Venison salami and Hungarian sausage and chicken and brie. What do you think, Nick?
I think that'll do. My goodness.
Huh? You learned it though today, haven't you?
Those on the beach in New Zealand after shooting a stag and some gin. Cheers.
Yeah.
Where's your gin?
Life is for living. While New Zealanders are notoriously hard workers, they're also acutely aware of the delicate balance between life and work. Around the world, they're referred to as Kiwis. And living the Kiwi lifestyle is all about balancing the time you spend working hard and the time you spend enjoying that Kiwi lifestyle. If you ask me, we could all take a page from that book.
Fresh, like gourmet pizza on the beach, booze, friends, guitars, and a baby Jack Russell Terrier. That's my idea of a good time.
Great food, good drinks, amazing people, and a campfire. It all makes being thousands of miles away from home feel like home. One button takes sting to stun. Scent crusher. Scent off. Game on. Here's some more of our awesome sponsors. Kimber, what all guns should be. Engel, high performance coolers. Hunter Specialties, serious hunting tools. Founding Fathers Coffee, great coffee for a great cause. Aim Point and Final Approach Waterfowl. It's my last morning to hunt in Lake Wanaka, New Zealand, and it's dreary and rainy out. I'm joined by Richard and Sarah's daughter, Georgie, and she's got her gun with her. She's lived on this property her whole life, and at 14, she's an accomplished huntress. And today, she's hoping to get a shot at an Arapara ram, which is a type of wild sheep. We slowly walk and glass the hillsides, and when you're stalking like this, you always have to expect the unexpected. We were looking for a ram. What we didn't expect to find was an absolute giant red stag bedded underneath a tree about a quarter of a mile away. And that left me with a tough decision to make.
The problem here is that we are on Georgie's ram hunt, although there's a huge red stag bedded right there, and I'm almost positive I can get to ball range from him, which means I'm going to be selfish and probably screw up Georgie's hunt.
It's yours.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, you take the chance.
Okay.
It's got to work out too, of course.
Yeah, it's got to work out.
it's usually the unexpected moments in our lives that we remember the most. I'm not sure what heaven is like, but walking through the clouds on the top of this mountain, up to the biggest antlered animal I've ever put my hands on, it puts me there for just a moment. And to share that moment with my new friend Dan and a young lady who graciously gave me this opportunity, that makes it all the more sweet.
You're a very gracious young lady for giving that up for me.
When I started hunting as a kid growing up in the Midwest, I never ever imagined that I would end up on the other side of the world doing it. I'm a big believer in getting outside of your comfort zone and pushing your own personal limits. But what I found here in New Zealand at Glen Dene with Richard and Sarah Burden was a place that made me feel completely comfortable, and a country that I feel totally at home in. But I had to come all this way to figure that out. And while I admit that I was a little out of my element shearing a sheep, the mountains of New Zealand felt like an old friend. So I ask you a question. What are you doing to get outside of your comfort zone? How are you pushing your limits as a hunter, as a person? Adventure is out there. All you have to do is go and take it.